Okay, so we did ours on deception in Kafka on the Shore. Okay, so our objective is that assumptions made based on first impressions of certain characters are refuted in Kafka on the Shore, which conveys one of Murakami's underlying themes, deception. So what we're going to be doing is that we have 4 characters that we're going to be analyzing: the prostitute, Johnny Walker, Oshima, and Nakata. Each of these characters, you make assumptions based before the underlying, or before it is revealed what they actually are, or basically what about them. So the first character, so we're each going to have 2. There are 3 to 4 quotes for each character, and we'll each split them. So she'll do 2, or I'll do 2, or sometimes she'll do 1. So the first character is the prostitute. When I think of prostitute, I think my idea of a prostitute is a girl who is good at sexual acts but feels no emotion behind those acts. They are usually uneducated or never make it past high school into college. So ways that you can get this assumption is from the first quote. It says, "The girl took Hoshino to a nearby love hotel where she filled up the bathtub quickly, slipped out of her clothes, and then undressed him. She washed him carefully all over, then commenced to lick him, sliding into a total artistic act of fellatio." Okay, so this is like basically the first interaction the prostitute has with Hoshino. And like, it says the artistic act of fellatio, and this shows that there's no emotion behind the fellatio. The word fellatio, Murakami used the word fellatio instead of the word lovemaking because lovemaking will also fit there. And that proves that the prostitute isn't doing the sexual acts for love. This connects to the idea of what I think a prostitute is, because I think prostitutes don't show any emotion or have any emotions when they're doing what they do. Also, this quote is made up of 2 sentences, each broken up by commas. And if you read the quote according to punctuation, the pace is really fast, and it shows how the prostitute was rushing to get this done, and she actually didn't really want to do it. The second quote, which says, "She took him over to the bed, stroked him all over with her fingertips and tongue, getting another erection out of him, a firm hard on a tower pizza at carnival time." This quote basically describes her skill. She's able to give him another erection, and they compare it to the Tower of Pisa, which is the leaning tower that's leaning, and it's tall, and it kind of resembles an erection. Yeah.
These next 2 quotes kind of contradict the previous quotes. It reads, "The pure present is an ungraspable advance of the past devouring the future. In truth, all the sensation is already memory." Like Jasmine said, when you think of a prostitute, you think of someone who's uneducated and hasn't finished, only has a high school degree. But this shows that she's on a more advanced level of knowledge, and she's quoting from books, which contradicts, because when you have the impression you have of prostitutes is that they're not intelligent at all, and her knowing this book shows that Murakami's use of the deception. The second quote, "Hegel believed that a person is not merely conscious of self and object as a separate entity, but through the projection of the self via the mediation of the object is able to gain a deeper understanding of the self, all of which constitutes self-consciousness." This quote also shows that she's quoting from a book on page 273. Okay. After that quote, Oshima says, "I don't know what the heck you're talking about." And when I first read this quote, I didn't understand it either, and that shows that she is smart and not dumb like you would think a prostitute is.
So basically, Murakami adds the deception when he includes that the prostitute recites quotes from psychology books, which is she's studying in college, and actually she is studying psychology, and she's a prostitute to support her way through college.
So she doesn't follow the norms of a prostitute.
Okay, so the next person is Johnny Walker, and like Johnny Walker, he's like a whiskey. It's the name of a whiskey company. He's the mascot for a whiskey company that's 2 centuries old. And one of the mottos of I looked up the company on the internet, and one of the mottos was, "We have never been content to stand still," and I'll explain why that's significant later. So the first quote says, "As if relishing a work of art, he narrowed his eyes and gazed at it intently. He stopped whistling for a second, extracted something stuck between his teeth with a fingernail, popped it in his mouth, and carefully tasted it. Then he smacked his lips, satisfied, and gulped it down." And it's on page 145. Basically, overall, the quote is showing how his satisfaction with the deed of killing cats and eating their hearts. Words like relishing and satisfied gave me the hint of how him killing cats and eating their hearts meant to him. And those words made it seem like he enjoyed the task. He was whistling, and usually when you think of someone whistling, they're whistling when they're in a joyous mood. You don't hear people whistling in a funeral or when like they get a bad grade or anything. So you would assume that Johnny Walker was enjoying himself, and the words extracted, popped, and smacked made the action of killing cats seem more menacing. And so you could imply that the act of doing something menacing was actually, Johnny Walker enjoyed doing stuff like that. So the second quote, which says, "Johnny Walker started whistling again. He finished cutting off Kawamoto's head and tossed the headless body into the garbage bag." Johnny Walker starts whistling again, which, like I said earlier, shows that he's enjoying himself. And then the verbs cutting and toss, they sounds very careless, like Johnny Walker doesn't care about killing the cats and just throwing their head into a garbage bag. This connects to the prostitute because she also didn't care about having sex with random men like Hoshino because she was doing it for a good cause.
This quote reads, "Truthfully, I'm sick and tired of this life. I've lived a long life, and I don't feel like living any longer. I'm sick and tired of killing cats." This quote came as a shock to me because when we were first introduced to Johnny Walker, he seems like a mean, cruel person who enjoys killing cats. But in this quote, it shows that he doesn't enjoy it in the end.
Yeah, which is kind of deceiving because the joy that you could assume from the previous 2 quotes, you wouldn't think that he would want to just like stop. And this connects to the what I said about the company itself. We have never been content to stand still. Johnny Walker has been killing cats and harvesting their souls for a while now, and I guess he's no longer content with standing still and continuing to do. That's why he asked Nakata to kill him. So the next character is Hoshino.
The quote reads, "Today he is wearing a blue rayon shirt, buttoned to the neck, white jeans, and white tennis shoes. He's sitting at his desk, absorbed in some messy book with the same yellow pencil, his bangs all over his face." When you read this quote, the description would have you assume that he's a male because of one when it says his bangs are all over his face. And usually females in Japan in Tokyo don't have bangs in their face. And he's also wearing a blue shirt, which usually is identified with the male. So that would lead to the assumption that he is male. The second quote is, "The doctor made me give up risky sports, so instead I drive compensation." This quote shows that this quote shows that he is also, you can also assume he is male because he says the doctor made him give up risky sports, meaning he enjoyed these sports, but now he drives.
So when you think of like risky sports, you think of football and
And you don't
hockey.
really attach women to risky sports.
Yeah, like football, hockey. You don't really see a whole bunch of women playing those kinds of sports and soccer and stuff like that.
So Murakami, he allows the readers to believe he is male.
Yeah, so you, because like at first you assume that that Oshima is male when the book never said that in the beginning. Okay, this quote, it says, "My body is physically female, but my mind's completely male. I am not a lesbian, even though I dress this way. My sexual preference is for men. In other words, I'm a female, but I'm gay." In this quote, Shima's describing his or her sexuality to the two women in the library. There are two things about this quote that is revealed. The first thing is pretty obvious. Prior to this situation, it was thought that Oshima was all male. And I say all male because he described that he's mentally male, but not physically male. So his sexuality is female, but his gender is male. Therefore, he's gay. And then as shown by masculine aspects observed in the past two quotes. So in his or her mind, Oshima is a male, and since he or she is still attracted to males, that makes him gay. The other thing is that Oshima also has his weakness up until this part of the novel. Yeah, because up until this part of the novel, it is assumed that Oshima is like next to perfect. He gives this great advice, and it's shown, it says that. It says that he says gays, lesbians, straights, feminists, fascists, pigs, communists, pan Christians, none of them bother me. I don't care what banner they raise, but what I can't stand are hollow people. And then it says, I say things I shouldn't do, things I shouldn't do. I can't control myself. That's one of my weak points. Do you know why that's a weak point of mine? So before that point, Oshima he showed infinite self-control, especially when he was helping Kafka out, trying to help him find a place. So it's it reveals that not everybody is perfect, especially Oshima, even though he may seem like it at first. And then the next quote, it says, "In terms of sex, I'm most definitely female, though my breasts haven't developed much and I've not had a period. But I don't have a penis or testicles or facial hair. In short, I have nothing." We know that Oshima said that he was special. That's why he could get along with Maseki. It turns out that Oshima has nothing at all. This relates to the prostitute because she felt nothing as well as Johnny Walker when they were doing what they did. All of this deception leads to nothing, basically. And then our final person is Nakata.
Sorry. This quote reads, Nakata doesn't really know about that, but ever since I was little, people said, you're dumb, so I suppose I must be. When Nakata was younger, people would classify him as dumb, so he would believe that. And later in the book, we're shown that he's not actually dumb. So that reveals that people's interpretation of one can be wrong.
So basically, he uses like third person, when he speaks in third person, when he refers to himself as Nakata. Every time he speaks, especially to the cats, and you assume that he's not as well educated as the rest of the characters in the book. So that's one of the assumptions.
And this is when we find out that he's not actually dumb. This is the quote, the entire quote. Okay, the entire quote reads, "Time wasn't the main issue for him. He didn't even own a watch. Nakata operated on his own sense of time. In the morning it got light. In the evening the sun set and it got dark. Once it got dark, he'd go to the nearby public bath." And so this quote shows that he doesn't need a watch to tell time, which can prove how smart he is for him to just automatically know that when the sun is out, it's morning, and when it's dark, when it's not light outside, it's dark time.
So basically, he has his limits because he can't tell time because of the situation that happened earlier. But he has found a way around it and found his own way of telling time and such. So the next quote says, "Nakata sat up straight through his whole recitation, and when it finished, he took a deep breath. He'd never seen him this much in one spurt in his life." So this quote shows that he is capable of overcoming his limits when it comes to knowledge. This is one of the first hints that shows that Nakata is smarter than what everyone thinks. He gave this whole speech about why he should get in trouble and what had happened. And before this point, he spoke in short, choppy sentences. And this is the sentence that the quote that happened before this. It was long and it was continuous, and it shows his intellect. And it also shows the police officer's ignorance because he didn't believe him because the story may have sounded crazy, and later on he did realize that Nakata was actually not crazy. And yeah. So the next quote says, "But by this time Nakata was no longer in town," and then it says, "Nakata had no idea where Fujigawa was, though he did understand he'd left Tokyo and was heading west. No need for a map to tell him that he knew it instinctively." Okay, so there's some typos here. I was tired. So Nakata claimed earlier in the novel that he couldn't leave his neighborhood because he would get lost, but this quote shows that he left and he was capable of leaving. And then the direction he was going west. So I wanted to know what Fujigawa was because the driver had asked him if he was going to Fujigawa. And Fujigawa is actually the name of a river in Tokyo. And if you follow the river is west of Tokyo, and that's where Nakata was at. So the river is in Japan, and it's west of Tokyo. So he was actually heading to Fujigawa before he even realized it. And if you keep going west from Fujigawa, you will end up in Takamatsu. So he didn't really need a map, which most normal people need to get around, especially places that they don't know. He knew these things instinctively, so that shows that even though he has his limits, he's smart enough to find a way around those limits and be successful.
Okay, so the conclusion is that with basic information about a specific character in the book, be it Nakata, Johnny Walker, for example, it is natural to make assumptions based on the information that you are given on the
Prior
first
knowledge.
on the first days.
Prior knowledge.
Okay. For example, the prostitute, before Murakami reveals anything about her.
Mr. Leasing, please contact the main office. Mr. Leasing, please contact the main office. We have a parent here for you.
The audience believes that she's uneducated and willing to do anything to make just quick buck. But when the quotes we showed, she quotes from books, like you said, from psychology books, and that shows that she has a lot of knowledge. The lesson Murakami is trying to prove is that the previous character, with the previous characters is that assuming things often leads to deception, whether good or bad. And I personally think deception makes you stronger.
Any questions?
Yeah. I got a few questions.
Yeah.
What was your objective overall? Because I didn't have time to like see
Oh.
it.
Assumptions.
We could go back.
You want us to go back and you want us
Yes,
to?
sir. Okay, so when you started talking about when you went into Shima, you said females don't have. You said something I can't remember.
Was it about the females don't play risky sports?
Yeah. Okay. When you said something about that's why he drove. I thought you guys were trying to make a connection. You didn't get there fully. See, like, if you think about it, with sports, they're intense because the players, they want to win. Both teams want to win. And that is sport, right? And then, but Oshima can't get that because his doctor told him not to. So what he does is drive. And when you're behind the wheel going over 90 miles per hour, what do you get? Intense. You get intense, you get that power. So I felt like you guys were trying to say that, but you didn't say it completely, so that's what I thought. And then you connected that, and when you said having nothing, when you were talking about his genitals and all that he had nothing, you're like similar to feeling nothing. So I was like, how's that similar? Feeling nothing and having nothing.
Having nothing, it's having nothing and feeling nothing. It both leads to something, you're missing something, and you have like emptiness within you, whether it's physical or mental. So like it shows how all three characters, Johnny Walker, the prostitute, and Oshima, all three of them, they're lacking something, and it doesn't have. I don't think it has to be physical for it to be significant.
Let me say something. I think when you feel like you had nothing, that's like a mental state. But as far as having nothing, that can be physical.
Yeah. So like you're missing something.
Yeah.
In like
for both cases.
Yeah.
And going back to the prostitute, I really liked it when you guys, so you talked about syntax, right? The syntax of the quotation that you gave, and you had said because of the coma, how it was like she was trying to get this over with so fast paced, but then I was like, not really, because she was like right there with him, talking about history and quoting Macbeth and all that, but then she came in, and then she was like, and no, she was taking her time with it, and she was actually more smarter than she had said she was. So I kind of liked that, and then I saw your chapter playing out there. So that was really good.
I like how you sort of related back to society, like you said, like, well, this is how I would feel if this was happening to me and stuff like that.